best in radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. It's Kerry, Lutz here, just getting over this nasty summer cold. And hey, the world's still trying to get over its case of the economic flu. And here to talk about it, well, you know what day it is. It's Manipulation Monday, and that means we are here with Andrew Hoffman. Andy, how are you?
The flu? I think we're talking more about Ebola.
Yeah, well, some kind of untreatable. Well, the disease is very treatable, but nobody wants to try the proven treatment that always works, right?
Well, I would disagree that it's treatable. There was a treatment available beforehand. Preventative measures could have easily been done, but once you get terminal cancer or Ebola, it's too late. There's absolutely, utterly nothing left to do except try to kick the can as far as they can and suck as much wealth from the 99% while they're at it before it inevitably collapses, which is what happened to all 600 prior fiat currencies.
This is true, but I still think we could switch to, it's not going to happen, but I still think we could switch to a currency, to sound money, and to free markets. And yeah, there would be a horrible period of transition, but the world could be saved, but it's never going to happen. So it's all academic.
Well, we'll be forced to have that new currency based on, or currencies based on real money in time. It's not, the fact that so many people think that the powers that be, and when I say powers that be, I don't mean there's some conspiracy of white bankers somewhere meeting. I'm just talking about in the various countries protecting their fiefdoms, that people believe that they have some kind of control or some kind of game plan, and that eventually they'll fix things, or they'll do a gold-backed currency. They just wake up every day playing defense, saying, "How can we kick the can a little further?" It's that simple. They do it in China, they do it in Japan, they do it in Europe, and they certainly do it here, where they have the most aggressive tools to manipulate perception of all time. But the fact is, they're going to lose. And right now, all they do is wake up every day trying to avert the inevitable.
Yeah, just keep it going for one more day, right?
Absolutely.
Just one more day.
Literally one more day. There's no long-term game plans. We talk about how the Chinese think, decades in advance, and the U.S., stock investors think 1 quarter in advance. When you're talking about people that are trying to protect a house of cards that's collapsing, we're talking about literally every day is a time frame. I wouldn't be surprised. I think I wrote about it years ago, what I called Sunday night specials, about how, so many things get done over the weekend by the powers that be. There's no doubt in my mind that there are tons of conference calls going on every weekend about, well, look, we got the Scottish referendum going on, and we got an FOMC meeting, and we got this economic data, which is going to be this. This is what we're going to say, and how can we mess around with the markets and the media while when all this comes? What should we do starting on Sunday night and all through Friday? And it's just tons and tons of conference calls about trying to manipulate perception and get them through another week.
Just another week, and make it to the weekend. That's all we want to do. We don't care about anything else, right?
Yeah, and of course, the most important days of trading are, early on Monday and late on Friday, because that's what sets the tone and the perception for the weekend readers. It's that simple. It's really not rocket science what's going on. The only thing that's rocket science, truly, is the tools that they have, the derivatives, the high-frequency trading, the algorithms that literally can place the price of markets wherever they want them to be. I should say most markets, because there's some things that can't be controlled. And it's those kind of Achilles heels, one of them being physical gold and silver, for instance, that is very, very tenuous at best when they try. I wrote today of cartel suicide, of what these guys are doing right now. Why they would want to try to push silver, for instance, 50% below the cost of production, when you're seeing already I mean, North American silver production is down like 60% in the last 15 years. Heck, silver and lead production is starting to fall dramatically. That's where the majority of silver production comes from. We're talking about an all-out collapse in production. And these idiots are naked shorting it so much that they've even made it more oversold than April 2013. They're just going to invite the same kind of buying panics we had in 2008, 2011. And this time around, I somehow don't think it's going to end well for them.
And it's so bad for countries that rely on natural resources, for regions of the country that rely upon it. That's why you have so few pure, silver mines out there, because they're not economically viable unless the ore grade is so rich that they can be profitable at virtually any price. And the harm that's done to countries out there and to populations by this manipulation, you just can't overplay it.
Exactly. The unintended consequences, let alone, I'm not just talking about they make the price too low and it causes demand to go high. I mean, they've destroyed Africa. I mean, look at South Africa today. The rand is at an all-time low today. The head of the central bank of South Africa, had to step down last week if things are getting that bad. The ramifications in general for currencies of all the money printing is causing currencies around the world to collapse. I mean, I've been writing about this for years. I wrote it last week. I wrote an article called "The Single Most Bullish Precious Metal Variable Imaginable is the currency volatility created by fiat currency systems. The more that dollars are printed and euros are printed, the more the volatility in the foreign markets. And every time there's even the slightest scare like you have now, every currency in the world plunges in value against the dollar. That doesn't mean the dollar is getting stronger, of course. It simply means that the majority of the world's population has seen instant explosion of their cost of living. The comedy of the situations. And we're talking about just last week, the ECB announced its QE and it's extending its NERP program. Oh, we have deflation and we need to get inflation higher. Well, they're not even starting QE until October. And just since then, the plunge in the euro of like almost 10% will give them that inflation before they even start QE. And then you look across the board at the inflation of all the other currencies. Look at the Brazilian real. Look at the South African rand. Look at the Japanese yen. I wrote back, a year and a half ago, I said, once that thing breaks below 104, 105, support where the Bank of Japan is supporting it, it's going to collapse. And, look at this. In a couple of days, we're at 109. We're talking about massive inflation in Japan when their CPI is already at a multi-year high, their economy is at a multi-year low, and Abenomics is on the verge of ending in April, so they're going to have to double up the inflation. Something very, very bad is going to happen, not just in Japan, but in many, many places around the world.
Yeah, and what did Milton Friedman say about inflation?
I don't even know.
He said, first and foremost, it's a monetary phenomena.
Okay, he was right about that part.
Yeah.
Economists got it right, because everyone thinks inflation means price increases, when that's just simply the symptom of it. Inflation means the increase in money, which always goes somewhere. It certainly goes into, as I call it, want versus need products, because for all this talk about deflation, we're at a record high cost of living around the world. But yes, a lot of that money has been taken by the governments of the world and put into the stock market to give the impression that there's some kind of recovery, as if anyone's paying attention. I wrote today in my article, I said, really, there's almost no difference between 2008 and what's going on today. The economy is in much worse shape now than in 2008. Debt is much worse than 2008. Commodities are collapsing. Currencies are collapsing like in 2008. The only difference is the government is printing money, all the government, and buying stocks and bonds with them. But how far can that be taken before the inflation is caused? And this is exactly what I'm talking about. They think that they're smart. Oh, we're going to take the Dow to all-time highs and allow Alibaba to go public at ridiculous valuation. But look at what's happening to currencies as a result.
Yeah. Yep. Nothing good is happening to currencies. That is for sure. And we can just expect more of the same, right?
Absolutely. And the worse the crisis gets, the more that they will print and the more that these currencies will all collapse. And again, eventually they'll lose their war against gold and silver. We can even talk about what they've been doing in the last week if you want more. But I mean, we're talking about razor thin supplies out there, record demand. Now we have the Chinese, the Shanghai Industrial, Industrial Board that just started right now, which is intended. The Bank of Japan, the Bank of China head said our goal is to make the price discovery here in China. So they're going to lose that perception game, and then it won't matter what the stocks are doing. Either they'll hyperinflate or they'll collapse, but it's not going to save the world from the inflation.
No, we know that. It can't work, and you can only control or manipulate a market for so long, and eventually the efforts are going to fail, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Like my good friend John Embry, I saw him do a podcast the other day, and Greg Hunter said, "Well, what's the what did you miss? In all this, if you missed something," he said, "Well, the only thing we missed is the extent of the powerful nature of these tools that these guys have now, between the derivatives and high frequency trading and the ability to move around markets with such technological advancement has created a temporary dislocation in reality that no one has ever seen before. But again, these dislocations in reality, I mean, economic Mother Nature does not lose. It is impossible for her to lose. And so the more that they do this, the more they're setting up for exponential failure. I mean, just look at Alibaba. They're sitting, I see Wall Street crowing about their margins. And then you look, I read an article today about their margins. It's just fake accounting. Their margins aren't even a third of what Walmart's are. But they, in trying to hype people into this thing at a $250 billion market cap, it's just a way of money going from the 99% to the 1%. And, eventually everyone will lose their shirt in Alibaba and everything else in this realm of bubble, which to me, on every metric, is now worse than in 2000, which is, I still can't believe I'm saying that, but it's true.
Yep. And, Chinese accounting anyway is always suspicious. They made threats against the accounting firms. They're going to blacklist them from China if they even thought of using GAAP. I mean, there's a lot of issues with this Chinese firms, and whether they have the assets or don't have the assets. I just don't know how anybody could feel safe investing in them. And looking at a financial statement,
it stems from the government. I mean, the government, they changed their GDP calculation this year. They've admitted last year that their data, their diffusion indices may not be accurate. In fact, they've been producing PMI numbers. In fact, they're expecting tomorrow another sub 50 PMI number, meaning a recession, and yet they still report 7.5% GDP growth quarter after quarter. How can you have growth, let alone that kind of growth, if your other indicators are saying recession? Of course, I've been putting together all the data that's showing otherwise. We're talking about a 50% drop in industrial commodities in China. We're talking about real estate has been falling now for, I think it's 6 months straight in China. The companies are going bankrupt. The ghost cities. I mean, how could anyone believe that they're growing at 7.5%? I wouldn't be surprised if they'll be falling at 7.5% shortly.
All fraudulent, and that's just the tip of the fraudulent iceberg. More on that up next on the Financial Survival Network.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
This show is brought to you by Audible, telling you if you're looking for books, audiobooks, you're looking for courses, you're looking for all sorts of audio entertainment that you can listen to in your car, around the house, you really got to go to audible.com/podcast/FSN. I mean, I've been listening to them for years. I've got over 300 books in my library. If you go sign up now, special offer, 1 month free membership, get a free book. Audible.com/podcast/FSN. I mean, some of these books, the narrators just bring them to life like nothing you've ever heard. I can't recommend them enough. One of my favorite sponsors. I love them. I know you will too. Go there now. Get that free book, audible.com/podcast/FSN. You'll be really glad you did.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Hey, in case you just joined us, it's Manipulation Mondays with Andrew Hoffman and so much going on here. Hey, what about the 10-year? You know, they still can't, they're still having problems getting the yield up on that.
Well, as you know, I spend an awful lot of time staring at that rate, as I should, because it's the most important, most widely used interest rate benchmark in the world. And I think I've been spot on in writing way back when of not only the 3% upside limit that they've imposed. I mean, obviously, you can't have interest rates going up with the biggest debt edifice on the planet, but also the 2.6% downside line in the sand. And then when it broke through it and got to 2.3, that was several months after I wrote of the most damning proof yet of QE failure, meaning they're trying to prove there's a recovery and rates are plummeting to all-time lows. But then suddenly, last week, there's an FOMC meeting, which, as we know, is what I call key attack event number one when it comes to gold and silver. Because anytime the Fed speaks, let alone, I mean, this one, now it's you have the statement goes out and then a half hour later, Janet Yellen speaks, so you get two separate smashes, no matter what they say. And in this one, they knew this was coming up, and they said, okay, we got to get that rate back up to the 2.6% line in the sand. So we're going to run rates up right up to the meeting and then try to push them even higher when they start speaking. But the fact is, I wrote an article last week called Nothing. And nothing was exactly what Janet Yellen said. She said absolutely nothing incremental. She said absolutely nothing hawkish. In fact, she was so dovish in her ambiguity about the considerable time before raising rates that even both Goldman Sachs and CNBC were crowing at it as how dovish it was. And believe me, those two have a mandate to continue to say, yes, the Fed is being hawkish because they're considering everything. And these guys were laughing at her. So they got it to 2.6, and now you look at it now, it's starting to creep back down, 2.55. You're going to look up, unless some hyperinflationary shock hits the system near term, you're going to look up again in a few months, and there we are. We're going to be at new lows again as they fail again. And they're going to fail in an even bigger way in trying to keep precious metals prices down, especially at these ridiculous levels below the cost of production with record global demand.
Yeah. Hey, did you see that article that the wealthy are buying these, I guess they're 400-ounce bars, gold bars? The demand, they can't keep up with them. The demand is up 243% from last year.
And how could it not be with all this money that's sloshing around the world? I mean, I love when they say, well, the gold's down because the dollar's getting stronger. Okay, for a second, let's ignore the fact that the dollar's not getting stronger. The fact that Japan announced, that the ECB announced QE, that China announced QE, and that Japan is obviously about to announce more QE doesn't make it the dollar stronger. And it certainly doesn't mean that people would buy less gold. In fact, I wrote another article last week called If a Nuclear Bomb Destroyed Europe.
I saw that.
Yeah. So if London and Paris and were all destroyed by a bomb, yes, the dollar index would go up against the euro. But does that mean it was a stronger dollar? It's complete silliness. But the fact is, on the other side of the equation, okay, what if you did believe that the stronger dollar meant there was less gold demand? But that would mean for Americans, right? Because the stronger dollar would mean weaker currencies in Japan, where the yen's fallen 10% in a month. The euro has fallen 10% a month. The Swiss franc has fallen 10% a month. All these other currencies, heck, the Russian ruble has fallen to a new all-time low. All these people aren't talking about strengthening rubles and strengthening euros. They're talking about collapsing currencies, which means those people are going to be buying gold. And there's far more Europeans than Americans, and there's far more Chinese and Japanese and Europeans than Americans. So again, it's so hollow, the propaganda. It's almost laughable. And I wrote this morning about how sad it is that so much percentage of the world has been dumbed down by poverty, by stupidity, to the fact that no one even questions the obviousness of these simple Mr. Spock type arguments.
Yeah. Hey, did you happen to catch that article that the Chinese bailed out their banks for 81 billion last week? By the way,
I was just talking about the Chinese. It was their second, as they call it, closet QE announcement in 6 weeks. Remember a few months ago they were trying to, play tough and say, "Oh yeah, we're going to let the yen strengthen a little and shock everyone." Well, guess what? They had to go back on that. It only took them a month or two time to go back on it because they realized their economy's collapsing and they can't play this game of strengthening their currency. It's the final currency war. It's the terminal stage. Every currency in the world is going to be debased until they're all destroyed. And the coup de grace, if we don't have a black swan of president, is going to be, as I said a million times before, when Whirlybird Janet is forced by the markets to admit that she was wrong, that Bernanke was wrong, that Greenspan was wrong, and has to go back on the whole bull about tapering and potentially raising rates. Ain't ever happening. And now she's in this area where, yes, she's been ambiguous enough with the considerable time comments, but she's going to have to say something soon, because to try to make us believe that the U.S. economy is going to keep going up with strong diffusion indices when the rest of the world is literally in a 2008 style collapse is comical. It's not going to be long before the whole world realizes that there's not even close to a recovery. And even the best part of this recovery that we talk about is we are now 6 years into a recovery. That makes it one of the longest recoveries in U.S. history, and we haven't even recovered. And rates are at all-time low to be held for a considerable amount of time. So there isn't even time left. There's no cushion left. There's nothing left. Look at last month's jobs data. It was the worst ever, the biggest. We're at the lowest labor participation rate we've been in 35 years, and yet they're trying to tell us that there's a recovery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I'm still waiting for the recovery.
I certainly am. Real median wages at a 40-year low. I can tell you from my personal experience, real median wages have gone down a lot. And I'm in the best possible business, or so I thought. There is no one, I should say no one, I would bet that 98% of this country is making less in real terms than they were 15, 20 years ago at the peak of the economy.
Well, there's not even a question about it. We know this for sure. You know, all the, even the cooked statistics show us that this is true, right?
Yeah. Well, my cost of living just goes up and up and up. The bills just go up and up and up. Maybe 2 or 3 things go down in value, but 100 others go up, and it's the expensive things that go up. And, the fact that you see all these people online to buy iPhones. Of course, they're now no money down iPhones as opposed to paying $300 or $400 a couple of years ago.
And there's the title to our podcast: "No Money Down iPhones," as opposed to "No Money Down Real Estate." Right?
It's crazy. Well, now we have no money down cars. I mean, car loans are not cheap. Cars are expensive too. People getting $30,000 car loans, no money down. They're starting to default at record rates. And people default on their iPhone loans and their Droid loans, meaningless products, which are nice, but they've benefited Apple more than anyone else.
Yeah, I love it though. So the damn world can't even afford the $600 to buy an iPhone anymore, right? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, just a day after I read that article about how the iPhone 6 is going to be no money down, I got an email from Verizon because I have a Droid. And it said that not only can I renew early and get my new phone early, because I'm not even in the 2 years, but guess what? I can do it no money down.
Hey, life is good. As long as the credit flows, the system will continue on. But we are at some point going to reach a breaking point. I don't even call it a tipping point. We're past the tipping point. It tipped a long time ago. There's going to be a breaking point. I don't know what it is, what's going to cause it, but the system is going to break down because it can't continue on like this.
Exactly. That's what we said in the beginning of the call. We passed the tipping point. There is no medicine to fix it. The medicine would have been preventative. We should have never gone off the gold standard, and we should have never bailed out banks 5 years ago, and we should have never let governments have unlimited fiscal spending power and taken rates to zero. All these things created a tipping point which can't be turned back. I mean, the Titanic, is sinking. You can't pull it back up. All you can do is jump ship and try to be one of the few people that get in the lifeboats like Kate Winslet.
Yeah, but Leonardo DiCaprio froze to death. And on that note, don't be Leonardo DiCaprio. Check out Andy's column along with Bill Halter's, their daily missives from milesfranklin.com. Subscribe today. Go over to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Subscribe to our newsletter. We also got a free webinar taking place September 24th at 9 p.m. Just click the link up on the upper left-hand corner of the site. It's free. Find out what's going on. And Andy, we will touch base with you next Manipulation Monday. Till then, be well.
You too. Thank you.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Every week the show is growing. Would you like to be a part of it? Then go to clubfsn.com and help support us with $1, $2, $5, or $10 a month and get a host of premium content with newsletters dropped into your mailbox, free books, private audio clips, webinars, and much more. Then join clubfsn.com. If you want to get ahead of the trend and ensure your family's financial security before it's too late, go to clubfsn.com and sign up.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.